All right. And I'll get my chat up here. Don't pick your nose or anything. They can see you now. We're totally live, man.
All right.
All right. Hey, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live stream. I'm here with Professor DM from Dungeon Craft. What's up, dude?
How you doing, Luke?
I'm doing great. Spectacular.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet, man. So, yeah, today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, layoffs that were announced. Actually, articles coming out today about layoffs. We're going to be talking about Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, I should say. Hasbro potentially moving to Boston, their headquarters from Rhode Island to Boston. We're going to talk about sales. Their third quarter earnings report came out today. We're going to deep dive into that and draw some observations from that. Talk about, are we going to have another round of Christmas layoffs? Well, I should say late year layoffs that are just in time for the holidays because, yay, it makes people happy. So we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff. I think Professor wanted to talk about thumbnails too, because I had like this really nice spicy thumbnail for this video, and I know he likes spicy thumbnails, right? Doing this kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that. So just the whole little shebang there. Before we get going, I have a couple of announcements. First of all, we have a giveaway. My cat's just biting me because he's jealous. We have a giveaway going on today. There should be a link in the chat. You can join in on that. We'll draw the winner at the end of the live stream, and he literally won't stop biting me. The winner will win 3 months of DM Lair Patreon membership, where you can get Lair magazine, map packs, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff to use in your 5th edition Pathfinder 2 games. So that's the first thing. Join the giveaway. We have a giveaway every single live stream. People who are in the live streams can win cool crap. It's pretty cool. The second thing is, oh yes, we are hiring some writers for the DM Lair. We're looking to add probably maybe 1 or 2 new writers to our team. So every single month we're publishing 5th edition Pathfinder 2 resources and stuff. We have Kickstarters that we write stuff for. Lots of writing for adventures, traps, puzzles, monsters, all these types of different things for gaming. So for 5th edition, our writers would write in 5th edition, and then we pay other professional dudes who are actually published in like lots of other like Paizo and crap publications. We pay them to do our Pathfinder 2 translations, but we write in 5th edition. So if you would like to potentially work for us, then there is a link in where we have like a little comment in the chat that has a link to where you can apply. So when that comes up, and if one of my moderators can throw a link to it, that'd be great too. You can apply there to write for us. We're reviewing applications now. The applications are not going to be open too much longer because we got to wrap it up and get somebody going. We got to get some writing done. So put your application in if you're interested. I want to have a big note that you must have a portfolio. Like if you submit an application and you don't have a portfolio, we're just going to ignore you. That's the way it is. We need to see what you can actually write. So if you're interested, submit a portfolio. Literally, Zach, who used to do a ton of the writing for us and now works for me doing a bunch of other stuff, he literally, one of the times that we were looking for writers, he literally sat down and wrote something to submit to us for the application. He got hired, and now he's my full-time employee. So like, if you don't have a portfolio, you can literally write something. It takes a few hours, and then you can submit it if that's what you want to do for your portfolio. Anyway, there you go. He just starts biting me. Okay, those are my plugs before we jump in. All right, Professor, you want to talk thumbnails? What do you got to say?
I got to say, I love this cat. I am loving this cat.
Won't stop biting me. You see him? This is like an expensive Fitbit watch, and he wants to bite the watch and put bite marks in it. He's jealous.
So I don't know if your viewers know this story, but it's a story I tell all the time. We were hanging out, you and I, at Gen Con, and we, occasionally you meet people who are the fans of either of our channels, and they ask you to pose for a picture. And every time you pose for a picture, we were with my wife. Every time you pose for a picture, it's like this, And my wife goes, "Luke, why do you make that stupid face every time for a picture?" And you go, "That's my clickbait face."
Oh yeah.
and she's like, "People really click on that?" And you're like, "Yeah, they love to click on it." And it's true. If you make that goofy face, they do click on your. So your thumbnail today was great. When I saw it, I was at school during lunch, and I was like, "Oh, this is great. He's got both our clickbait faces on."
I know. I had to scrape yours from one of your videos because a lot of your thumbnails has text over it and stuff a little bit, and so I had to go through. But I found one, and then I was like, I'm gonna scrape that off from there. So yeah, it was
Thanks for
perfect.
watching them all. Thanks for watching them all.
Oh
All
yeah,
right, let's
yeah, absolutely.
get going. Where do we start here?
So was that all we had to say about the thumbnails?
Yeah.
You ready to move on?
Yeah, we're ready to. I'm ready to move on.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about the Hasbro earnings report. You want to dig into
Okay.
that? So yeah,
Go ahead.
He's gonna deep dive into this earning report. All right, but what we know right now is a few different. You can Google it. It's all over the place now. But Hasbro has laid off fewer than 100 employees. It sounds like some articles said a dozen. One was like 50. Whatever, but it's fewer than 100. Half of them were from their Rhode Island offices, which is where they're headquartered. So those layoffs happened on Wednesday, right? And their earnings report came out today, and we're gonna deep dive into the earnings report. Professor's literally gonna read us through those suckers, and then we're also gonna talk about, will we see more layoffs just in time for the holidays? So, all right, Professor.
All right, so I'm taking a look at the third quarter earnings report. This is from Business Wire. And so here are the highlights. So Hasbro third quarter revenue declined 15%, excluding the E1 divestiture. The revenue declined 9%. Wizards of the Coast digital gaming segment declined 5% due to the lap of Baldur's Gate 3, and consumer products declined 10% behind softer volume. That means they're selling less toys. They're selling fewer toys.
So most of their large business divisions or whatever are declining in revenue.
Yes.
By a considerable amount.
Yeah. Operating profit of $302 million and operating margin of 23.6 includes $27 million of costs for intangible amortization, blah, blah, blah. All has to do with E1. Adjusted profit of $329 million and adjusted operating margin of 25.7%, driven by favorable business mix, supply chain productivity, and lowering operating costs. Supply chain productivity is something like D&D Beyond.
You don't got to ship physical products. You can just sell electronic stuff. It saves you tons of money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And lowering operating costs. That means people.
Right. 100%. Because last year around this time, they were at a loss of like 170 million or something, according to one article I read. Right. And now they're at a profit. Now, the interesting thing is that their revenue has gone down, but their profit has gone up. So you cut 3,000 plus people, from your company, right? That cuts out a lot of that operating cost, which is probably a large part of what drove their profits up, I'm guessing.
Yes. And the net earnings of $1.59 per diluted share compared to $1.73 per diluted share. That means benefiting from a favorable business mix and improved profitability. So the earnings per share is going up, and it's based on they are more profitable, but that doesn't mean they're selling any more things. It could be they are improving the supply chain and just getting rid of people.
Right. Well, their revenue is down, so they're definitely not selling more things. Technically, it could be more things at cheaper prices or whatever, but the revenue's down. Yeah.
No question. This is specifically Wizards of the Coast. Revenue decreased 5% as growth in Magic the Gathering was offset by expected declines in licensing and digital gaming due to the launch of Baldur's Gate 3 in third quarter 2023. Magic the Gathering revenue increased 3% behind growth in tabletop and arena. So both the cards and Magic Arena, which is their digital version.
So that went up. So Magic the Gathering is going up in revenue.
Yep.
Okay.
Monopoly Go contributed $30 million of revenue in line with guidance.
I wonder what the percentage is on that, because if they made more than that last year, then that's a decline. That doesn't say.
The next bullet point is operating profit declined 11% and operating margin of 44.9%, down 3.1 points due to lower digital licensing revenue.
Yeah.
So they're not licensing as many games. They're not getting as much money from it. Their big growth is in Beyblade, Transformers, Furby, and in licensed consumer products for My Little Pony. And that's a good time to plug the My Little Pony role-playing game, which is coming out. I'm not sure when it comes out, but I do know my friend James Spahn is the writer on that.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, author of the One Ring starter set on My Little Pony. So that's
Sweet.
what's happening. That's what's happening.
So there's a My Little Pony role-playing game coming out.
There is.
I have never. All I know about My Little Pony is I have an image of a pink pony in my head, but I don't think I've ever watched any of those shows or anything. I don't know anything more than that.
Well, now you can make up your own little pony and probably have D&D crossovers. So now I'm looking at the 2024 company outlook for the full year. The company now expects consumer product revenue will go down. Wizards of the Coast and digital gaming segment revenue, this is key, flat to down 1%. Operating margin of approximately 42%. So it looks like Wizards of the Coast is flat for the year. That's the outlook.
Wow.
So that's not great.
No, because if they're flat, Wizards of the Coast, if I remember correctly, was like making up for horrible sales in the rest of Hasbro.
Yes.
Right. So if they're flat, then that's not good. So it sounds like probably everybody who was going to buy, I imagine Baldur's Gate 3 was probably one of the big drivers for revenue for Wizards of the Coast, right? Licensing and stuff. That had to have been, I mean, Magic the Gathering, okay, sure. Right. That was probably huge too. But Baldur's Gate 3 and the licensing and stuff probably helped a lot to bolster that. So
that's my understanding.
Yeah, so Baldur's Gate 3 is, my guess is that most people who are going to buy it probably have, right? And so there'll always be a trickle of people, you know. So that's flat. And now they've got to rely on Beyblade. What is that? Do you know what that is?
Beyblades are like those, I think those little skateboards with your fingers.
So those Transformers, Furby, that's like a stuffed animal or a stuffed, what are those?
A Furby is a little stuffed animal that talks.
Okay, cool. So I kind of know a little bit. And then My Little Pony. That's what they're relying on. Okay.
Yeah. New species coming out to D&D Beyond, the Furby. The pony. There's going to be crossovers.
My Little Pony will be a new species, and then Furby a new species. Yeah.
That's my prediction.
Yeah.
If you've got rabbits and hippos, why not ponies?
Yeah. No kidding. All right. Wow. So that's flat. You want to keep reading?
That's it.
That's it?
Done.
Okay, cool.
And it took a dive today. It took a dive, $4.
That's right. So Hasbro's stock is down. I had their stock up. It's basically, I'll put it on stream. People can kind of see it a little bit right there. So Hasbro, this is just their 5-day stock. It just kind of plummeted right there. So they announced their third quarter earnings and stuff, and it plummeted. Year to date, you can see that their stock was just slowly creeping up year to date, you know, and then when they announced their earnings, just kind of died right there. So
yes, smash.
Yeah, so that's not good. So we kind of said this before, but if their revenue keeps on going down, and the only reason they had a profit at all was due to layoffs, it sounds like we can expect more layoffs then.
I would say so, and it's unfortunate, but they're in a bit of a death spiral here.
This is a death spiral. It looks like it, right? Because if your revenue is down 15% from last year, you know, it's like they're essentially clinging on by just letting people go, right? But you let too many people go, then you're gonna have a hard time making products to sell.
Well, that I'm not sure about.
No?
That I'm not sure about, because how many people do they really need to produce? Well, they got a bunch of different toy lines. But I'll just throw my idea out. I mean, we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons about the whole company. We getting in the micro or of D&D?
We could do both. Let's just be clear about which one we want to talk about first.
Okay. All right. Well, the macro of this company is they're in a lot of trouble because they own a lot of brands that are not all profitable. And it's all about the quarter. They have to beat quarterly expectations. It seems the way they're doing it is by laying people off. They have a big dividend, right? And they paid out a lot of dividends, like 98 million in dividends this quarter, whatever.
Right.
I think the investor for a Hasbro are pension funds. Pension funds and older retail investors. Hasbro is a kind of company that if my grandma or my dad were still with us and investing in stocks, that they might want, because it pays a good dividend. People know the name. Company's been around for a long time. It's not going anywhere. So that's why you would invest in a Hasbro stock, because it's paying you a dividend. That's what keeps it afloat. If it didn't have that dividend, nobody would be buying into that stock, because its outlook for toys in general is not good.
No, the reason they can pay a dividend, though, is because they're making a profit. If they don't make a profit, they don't pay a dividend, correct?
Yeah, and that's and if they ever cut the dividend, the whole company would go down the tubes.
Because nobody would want to buy that stock.
Not at all. There'd be no reason to buy it. You buy a stock because of two reasons. One, it goes up. Two, pays you a dividend. And if you can get one that does both, well, there you go. If you want to be a growth investor, you want something like an Nvidia, right? Yeah. That shot up, or a big stock that shot up today was like Tesla. It was beaten down to 2, and one day it went to like 264.
Nice.
Doesn't pay a dividend. You buy it because you expect it to go up rapidly.
Right. Yeah.
You pay a dividend stock, you expect very slow to modest growth, but you want that dividend. So how do they keep producing the dividend? If they don't, the whole company goes down. Right. So then that brings you to your point. They have to fire people. Yeah,
and I'm sure they'll do it like mid-December. It seems like that's when they did it. That's when they did it last year. They've already started, obviously. I wonder, do you think they even care about firing people right before Christmas? Does that even bother them? Or you think, because they started already, because like literally on Wednesday they were laying off like about 100 people or so. So they've kind of getting warmed up to it. Are they going to lay off earlier this year just to like avoid the holidays? They're still getting before the holidays. Or do you think they just don't care? They're just going to do it whenever accounting says it's best?
It has to do with the fiscal year, and it has to do with tax ramifications for the end of the year. And this is a giant corporation. Giant corporations don't have a soul. They don't think about, Bob Cratchit and Tiny Tim at Christmas. That doesn't go through their head.
Yeah.
They do what they do so the company survives, and so that the shareholders don't sell the stock.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the part about the company surviving, right? Because if they don't do what they need to do to survive, and the whole company goes under, then everyone loses their jobs. So I can understand the rationale there. There's just part of me that's like, dude, right before Christmas, like, cold-hearted jerks, man. It's like, hey, 5 days till Christmas, you lost your job, baby. Go return all those presents, or don't tell your family until afterwards,
Well, that's because you have a soul, but a company, a giant corporation doesn't have a soul. And businesses can have souls because they're run by people, but you get to a size where it's just all dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And that's where they're at. That's where Hasbro is at.
Jeez, man. I wonder how many it's going to be this time. So, I wonder, back at the beginning of 5th edition, D&D, they did a lot of contract work. Like you'd have companies like, if I remember correctly, Cobalt Press would write some of their adventures, and other companies might write some stuff, or just like individual freelancers would write things for them. I wonder if they're gonna go back to that sort of model at some point. I mean, I'm speaking strictly probably D&D at this point, because then you can have a pretty lean core team, but then just hire freelancers as needed, to produce some of your stuff. And I got to tell you, I look at all of the big laundry list of names at the beginning of some of these books, and I have like two full-time people on my team, me and one other guy, all right? And then I have like about 5 freelance writers or something, and then some cartographers and artists, and we produce these books. It doesn't take a massive team of people to produce a book. You know what I mean? And they have like so many names on there. You got to figure. I don't know. It just seems like you could definitely, if you had 10 people on a team to write a book, not including artwork, but if you had 10 people on a team to write a book, that's a lot of people working on a book, So I don't know. I'm wondering but there's got to be a point where you get too lean, right? And then do you start doing contract work? I wonder if that's in the cards for them.
I don't see how that's not the inevitable conclusion.
Yeah.
Because the other thing we're dealing with is technology. Digital tools are improving. So layout, editing, art layout, that's all gotten easier.
Yeah.
You need fewer people to do it. So.
Yeah. They're just going to keep going leaner and leaner. We got a super chat from Roll for Combat. Hey, what's up, Steven? How you doing, man?
Steven's here. He's everywhere.
We beat him to it. He was like, I was going to do a live stream about this. You guys beat me to it. No. Well, this is my regularly scheduled stream, so I'm here every Thursday no matter what, unless I'm at a convention. Anyway, he says, hey, dudes, sorry I missed the chat. Hasbro is on its way to becoming nothing more than an IP house and will make money licensing their IPs. They are going out of business, but they aren't toy makers. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Because if you could just license your IP that you have legal rights to, obviously, other companies do all the work. They take all the risk, so to speak, and you just kind of sit back, and then once their project comes to fruition, you collect a percentage. I'm sure there's probably an upfront, like somebody when they buy an IP, like for instance, when Larian Studios bought the IP for Dungeons and Dragons to make Baldur's Gate 3, I bet you there was some sort of like upfront, we give you this much, and then there's a royalty on sales type of thing, So,
that is what it is.
Yeah. So I can see them doing that. What do you think? What kinds of stuff do you see them licensing and doing?
Well, just like G.I. Joe, it was licensed to one comic company, and I think they pulled it and they're going somewhere else. I think it's still published, but it's published by a new team, new company.
Yeah.
It'd be like that. I think where it could go with Dungeons and Dragons is they just license out the brand, and it becomes like what's the company that does Warhammer fantasy role play is Cubicle 7.
Okay.
Cubicle 7. So Games Workshop doesn't actually publish Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Cubicle 7 licenses it, and they have a whole team, including some of the original designers working on it. Mm-hmm. And they do it, and they take all the risk. And I think you could end up with D&D going that way. Like, why is D&D an in-house situation? Mm-hmm. I can understand why it was that way in the 80s, because it was an esoteric game and only a handful of people understood it. And you needed, Gary Gygax and Frank Menser and Zeb Cook and those guys, because they're the only ones that understood it. It was a very niche kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now that everybody understands it and everybody could do it, and you don't, why do you need a staff of people doing it? And, I feel terrible for those people, but honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, imagine. And somebody in chat was just saying, Frederick says, exactly, Luke, new adventure by DM Lair or Professor DM, official D&D independent adventures. So imagine if Wizards of the Coast starts to like contract out work again, and they approach you and they're like, hey, You know, do you want to do an adventure or something, or a adventure module? You know, or they come to me. They don't talk to me. They would never talk to me. But if they did, you know, they'd be like, hey, do you want to do an adventure module? You know, like officially licensed type of thing. You know, that would be interesting. And if for instance, if I picked up that sort of work, it's possible that like they lay off all of these different writers and stuff. You know what I mean? It's possible that some of those writers might end up working like with you or me or other companies that do this sort of contract work with Wizards of the Coast, you know? So, yeah, that's interesting, but it would be cool, you know, or at least, I don't know, it would be interesting to see other companies, you know, doing officially licensed stuff. Would you think you could ever do something like that?
I wouldn't. It's not my jam.
No, it's not your jam.
It's not my jam.
Writing that stuff, producing it, or the game system?
You know, I'm working on my own game, Deathbringer, and it's like D&D the way I would make it, and I think it's cooler, and I own my own trademark.
Yeah.
I own my own IP.
Yeah.
Which I can then. So this is a video that I got coming out tomorrow, because the speculation was Chris Perkins is leaving and Matt Mercer is going to come in.
So I can't reveal my source, but I know, and I can 100% confirm that Chris Perkins isn't just not working on D&D anymore, but I was told from a very reliable person that he's just leaving the company. So I don't know nothing more than that, you know, but that's my understanding. He's just leaving the company, period. Now, you said Matt Mercer might come in? Is that
that was the rumor. That was the rumor earlier in the week.
I don't think so. Matt Mercer, he has his own product line and fandom. He's got his thing going on, dude. He's like living the dream right now. I don't think he's gonna go work for Wizards of the Coast. He's his own boss, dude. He's like the man. He's not gonna go work for he's not gonna like step off his throne and like go work for Wizards of the Coast. Nah, I don't think so.
And that's where I am. I'm like a less popular, less talented, less good-looking version of Matt Mercer.
Okay. I don't know. I was in that Macbeth game with you in your Deathbringer system, and that was a pretty stinking awesome game, dude. So I don't necessarily buy the less talented thing. So I think it was pretty fun. Because see, I judge a game master not by how great of a show he can run for viewers, but how great of a game he can run for players, you know. And that was a cool game. So
yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was like Trevor Duvall from Me, Myself, and I was there, and Justin Alexander, how to be, be a great
game master. Yeah.
Yes. So you want to be a game master, and they're all playing. Right. Yeah. It was crazy. Baron DeRop at Dungeon Masterpiece. Was he there? I mean, it was crazy.
I know. He ran a Mothership game for us, which was
right.
That Mothership game. I gotta tell you, I think you were just spectating. You were there for a little bit, but you were watching, right?
It was fun. It was
dude, I was sitting there. It's like I like to use like special voices and all this kind of stuff, but I was out of my league, dude. You had Baron DeRop was just with his voices, the voice acting was going nuts. Kelsey was doing it was off the charts. Justin Alexander was a robot. He was doing the robot. Oh, that was crazy. And then I had Stephen Glicker was there. He was doing this like cigar smoking, I just want to blow things up, tough guy thing, you know. So I was like looking at all these people like doing all of the like, you know, talky bits, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like all like if you wanted to start up a D&D or a Mothership or like whatever TTRPG show to compete with like the big ones out there, that was like the all-star cast, because they were all amazing actors. Their voice acting was amazing, you know. It was just like, and it was a fun game too, you know. It was just like, wow, that was crazy. Yeah.
So for the audience, I got there late because I had to do a seminar, so I get there late, and they were like, hey, jump in, but there was already like 6 people. I was like, it's too crowded. I just loved watching that thing.
Yeah,
it was legitimately entertaining. I was like, these people are so great. Like Justin, you know, with that robot playing the android. It was just so good. It was so good. It was a lot of fun. And,
it was crazy. And I literally, what I enjoyed most about it, not most, but one of the things I enjoyed was that we were literally playing out almost Aliens 2. Did you notice that? It was essentially Aliens 2, from landing, seeing the abandoned installation, having to get in, and then finally we were like cornered in like the mess hall or something. I forget what it was. And then aliens were streaming in, getting through the barricade, and it was exactly. I was like, and it didn't bother me at all and I knew how it was going to end, but I was just like, this is so cool to like actually in a role-playing game just play a recreation of Aliens 2. Now the aliens themselves were a little bit different than like in the movies and stuff, but I don't know. That was and one of the things I liked about that game too was like the character sheets. It's like, and I made a video about this a little bit ago. Like every character sheet should be like this, where literally the character sheet walks you through how to make your character.
It's a flow chart.
It's a flow chart, and it references a couple pages in the book. That's it for like your kit, your loadout, some gear, but that's it. And Pirate Borg is like that too. The flow chart, it tells you how to make your character. So as you could be a brand stinking new player, sit down and be like, I gotta make a character, and you're like, oh, okay. Couple questions to the game master. Oh yeah, you're done. 5-10 minutes, you're done. Can you imagine D&D 5th edition if you're a brand spanking new player? You're not. Whoo. Or Pathfinder 2, like, oh man, no way, dude, no way. It's like, as an experienced player, it takes you some time to make characters in these games. So I was like, so my whole premise was that every character sheet should be like that. Simple, flow chart, easy, get you in the game quickly. And then also, if you die, you just make a new character like that. It's like, oh, I died. In Pirate Borg, you die all the time. It's like, oh, whatever, I'll just make a new one. Okay, I'm ready to go. You know, or Shadow Dark, it's like, oh yeah, make a new one. I'm ready to go. You know, but like in 5th edition or Pathfinder 2, it's like you almost don't want to kill your players, in part because you know they're going to spend 2 hours making another character, you know? And then because it takes so long, you know. So
yeah, those are great games, by the way. I'm going to be on with Limithron on his podcast.
Awesome.
Pirate Borg. That's next month. I'm only doing 2 shows for the rest of this year, and this is one of them.
Oh, okay.
And the other is Limithron.
Well, thank you, dude.
Pirate Borg is great. Everybody should get it. A lot of fun.
So I was hanging out with Luke and his brother Tyler at Gamehole Con just a couple days ago or whatever. Luke is the dude who made Limithron, right? Luke Stratton. So I was actually he's gonna come on my stream in December sometime, and we're gonna talk about Pirate Borg. So yeah, Pirate Borg is tons of fun. It's just crazy. And the book, the artwork in it, the artwork is like, I'm just like looking at the Pirate Borg artwork and just drooling. It's like, oh my gosh, the artwork and layout is so amazing. That's nuts. So yeah, but yeah, that's a great game. I love that game. So I play that almost every convention. I go find those guys in the vendor hall, and I'm like, hey guys, let's play some Pirate Borg. Well, go ahead.
It's one of the fringe benefits of being a YouTuber. Is like these publishers will run games for you, and you play with the designers of the games, and that's kind of cool. That's really fun.
Well, I like it too because I publish books and stuff too, and I'm always trying to like improve that area of what I do, you know, so I can go there and meet these people who are in the thick of it and like ask them about like, hey, I want to get my books in stores. What do I do? Oh, you need to talk to a consolidator because you're too small for distributors, but a consolidator might talk to you. You might be able to do something. Oh, okay. How do I do that? Oh, go to GammaCon. Oh, okay. And then I'm going to give you the name. Oh, okay. So I can like, I'm like asking them all these questions and trying to get information about all this kind of stuff. So it's cool too. And you get to play cool games. So yeah, that was fun.
So where were we? Matt Mercer, and he's not going to be the guy at Wizards.
No. So what's going to happen is Chris Perkins is going to leave, right? And then it's going to be Jeremy Crawford. So Jeremy Crawford will be like the head designer. I don't know what his official title is, but he'll be the head designer, right? And then I'm sure they're going to lay off a bunch of people from the D&D team as well in their Christmas layoffs. So that team will just get smaller, you know, and it'll be led by Jeremy Crawford would be my guess. Which I don't know, man. Like Chris Perkins is just like a genius, you know. So you got to wonder. This is another thing. So I was listening to a lecture by somebody recently, who is he's like a D&D like historian buff. He knows a whole bunch of this crap. And one of the things he was talking about was that because of the culture that's being developed at like Wizards of the Coast and like in the D&D area. There's this culture of like playing political games and stuff, because if you're doing tons of layoffs, right, and people are constantly getting laid off, you know, then what happens is you have to protect your job, right? You're worried about losing your job. And so a lot of people will start to revert to playing politics to get ahead in their career, which, stop biting me. Oh my goodness. That was a bad nip. All right. So they'll start playing politics to like protect their job, make it look like something might have been somebody else's job. And there's this infighting going on, this political type stuff, you know. I don't know how much of that you get in your line of work, as like in teaching and stuff like that. But one of the things that starts to happen is like, you know, you get this political I'm like literally like trying to stay away from his like teeth here. You get this like political infighting. So there's part of me that wonders, with Chris Perkins leaving, I wonder if there was some political stuff going on there between Chris and Jeremy Crawford. It makes me wonder. I have no idea. Yeah, that's right. You'd be afraid of me too. I have no idea. I'm just totally speculating. So that would be interesting. These are the things you like, oh, we might actually learn about this stuff, because once people leave the company and they're no longer afraid to talk, maybe we'll learn about it. So I don't know.
I don't think he's leaving. I think Jeremy Crawford's actually getting promoted.
You don't think Chris Perkins is leaving?
No. I think Perkins is not leaving. He's getting promoted. He announced he was getting promoted.
Did he?
Yeah. So that doesn't mean he's staying. But I'm looking up his stuff now. His Chris Perkins. He announced it. I forget what the title is. I'm coming out with a video about it tomorrow, and I'll. But he's got a new title.
Well, yeah, it says Christopher Perkins promoted to creative director at Wizards of the Coast.
Creative director, yeah.
Right. But there was something about him stepping away from D&D at the end of the year, though.
Definitely. Yeah. That was in Polygon. He's stepping out of the D&D role after the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Right.
And it's to take that new job, creative director. And where that is in the hierarchy, I couldn't tell.
So the official information is that he's stepping away from D&D to become the creative director at WotC. Okay, and it says he was a game design architect.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I'll like to see where it goes, because the information I had is that he was just leaving the company. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, because you know how there's what's official out there and then what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't have any sources that have any information on.
Oh yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah.
So he's moving, and so Matt Mercer isn't taking the place, but spoiler alert for tomorrow's video. I don't think it matters who takes his place, really, because D&D sells itself.
Mm-hmm.
Probably it's got to be someone from inside the company, because only someone inside the company knows exactly what Chris Perkins does. But we think Chris Perkins is cool, and I've admired his work ever since we both wrote for Dungeon Magazine back in the 1990s.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that designers sell games to Dungeons and Dragons fans. What sells Dungeons and Dragons is that magic ampersand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree, because I've done a few publications where I did something similar, where I would pull on like a big name designer, somebody who's really known in a specific like thing, and didn't affect sales whatsoever.
Yeah,
it didn't make a difference. So yeah. We got super chat from the VTT DM, says, regardless of if Chris is staying or leaving, the fact that Hasbro is still willing to lay off those responsible for some of the success at Wizards of the Coast is ridiculous. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think it's sad, but when you work for a major corporation, that is kind of what you're doing. Like if you're producing Mickey Mouse cartoons, or you're producing Star Wars. You don't own the Star Wars, and they will fire you.
Mm-hmm.
They will fire you even if the thing is successful. They may get rid of you.
Yeah.
That's part of corporate, when the corporation owns the thing.
Yeah, and I think part of, like, one of the things they look at is that they're trying to cut costs. They're going to look at people's salaries, and if you're making 250,000 a year, that's a lot. When they know they can get some young buck out of college who's eager, he's going to bust his butt, he'll work 60 plus hours a week, and all he cares about is, I'm going to work for D&D, or I'm going to work for Magic, I'm going to work for WotC, and he'll come in, they'll give him 30 grand a year, right? And he will bust his face off, and they can get almost 10 of those, and it'll replace the one person they got rid of. And those 10 people or whatever, like, you got to wonder, is the one person going to outperform 10 people working their faces off? Probably not. Is the quality going to be different? Yeah. But is the quality really going to matter? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the new player handbook that came out that I think is broken and messed up, but it's still apparently selling pretty well. So quality, people are just like, whatever, I'll just buy it, So I don't know. But yeah, go ahead.
I don't think they'd replace them for monetary reasons, because that $30,000 a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, well, first of all, every designer over at Wizards of the Coast gets paid triple digits. They're the highest in the industry. They get paid a lot because they've got this very narrow, specific skill set. They're specialists.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a Chris Perkins or a Mike Merles or somebody like that, you're talking about an elite game designer, and only they really know how the whole thing is put together and how that whole assembly line works. I don't think you could put anyone in there to have a learning curve. They've already got books scheduled a year from now. Whatever they're publishing, Wizards of the Coast, they're working on it a year in advance. However, just as things, I think it's more likely to go the way you originally said, which is eventually they decide we could just hire it out to a third party. Fantasy Flight can make a D&D book.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the thing with third parties is, so in this scenario I proposed, so each employee that works for you, you have to pay like 40% more because of taxes that you have to owe for the government. And then if you're offering healthcare and 401k and crap, let's assume you have a match of like 5%, 6% or whatever is normal. Like, that employee that costs you $200,000, they probably actually cost you more like $400,000 or something because of all the different benefits and all this kind of stuff, which is super expensive, right? But if you can contract that out to another company, you no longer have to worry about any of those benefits at all, right? It's just, this is what we want you to do. This is the deadline, right? Get it done, deliver. And then that company's pretty much got to figure out how they get it done, and they got to hire the people and pay all those costs and stuff, and then they have to worry about the finances of making it all work. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a reason that I do so much contract work, I'm a small company to begin with, and I wouldn't be able to pay. I don't have finances for that many full-time people, but also it's like a full-time person, you got to keep them busy with a bunch of work too. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know that I'd have enough work for another person full-time, so we do a lot of contractors and stuff, but using contractors is great because you can find the exact person you need that has a super refined speciality. This person does graphic design and layout. Oh yes, this guy's amazing at that. Do I have enough graphic design and layout to keep him busy full-time? No, I don't. No way. He one week a month, that's not full-time, So then you have, and then writers, and then artists and stuff, So like, contract work is great because you find exactly who you want. They do the thing for you. You come upon an agreed upon price, you know what I mean? And you just pay them what they want for it, And then they're responsible for paying their taxes and retirement or healthcare and all this kind of stuff, So there's a lot of business advantages to using contract work, And then, And then the other thing too is sometimes, you know, you'll do with a full-time employee, you know, sometimes you bring on an employee and then it's not working out, right? It's not working out, and you're like, I gotta let this person go, you know. But then there's the problem of, well, you know, you got to make sure that it's well documented to cover your legal risk of firing someone, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And then you still might have to pay unemployment and stuff. So, and I don't know how that works. I don't know if I'd have to actually pay it or that just comes out of the state unemployment war chest or whatever. But there's these things, you know what I mean? But with a contractor, it's like, if I got someone who's, say, writing something and he writes something that isn't that great, I just don't have to ask him for anything else. You know, it's as simple as that. We just don't contract him for anything else, you know? So it makes a lot of the pain, you know, it's a lot streamlined and easier, you know? So yeah, I can see them doing something like that.
I don't see how it goes any other way. We're talking long term. I'd be very surprised if in 20 years Wizards still has a staff producing Dungeons and Dragons and different updated versions. And I also think this version of the game is designed to be the evergreen version, so they don't really have to do major changes, because it's got to work in sync with their VTT, which is what they really want. They really want that VTT to work. They want Dungeons and Dragons to evolve into a digital game.
Right. Yeah, that's where they see the money as being. Yeah, because all of these games are making billions of dollars and stuff, and they want a piece of that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you think it's going to be evergreen? It'll always be evergreen and won't change?
No. Why would it? Because after 4th edition, 5th edition it's built on the 3rd edition. It's most like the 3rd edition.
Yeah. Yep.
Because what they did with 4th edition, they did something innovative, but then people said, no, this isn't D&D.
Yeah.
And so they went back with the 5th edition to make it, and that is the final form of D&D. And they'll tweak it, but it's pretty much what they want to be, because it's got to work with the VTT.
But they could update. They could update the VTT if they were to make big changes. They would just update it all, right?
Yeah, but you know, I think it's pretty much set the way they've got the formula. Mm-hmm. You know, more subclasses. We're gonna have more subclasses, more spells, forever.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about that, and the only types of models that I'm aware of, so like I'm thinking of games like World of Warcraft, right? Where you have a base game that mostly stays the same, you know, and it makes me wonder, is World of Warcraft, is the amount of people playing it increase? Stop biting me, oh my goodness. Is the amount of people playing that increasing or decreasing? I wonder. World of Warcraft. I'm looking this up. World of Warcraft users by year. Is there a graph of it? It looks like it's going down. It's absolutely going down. So yeah, I'm just looking at the stats of it. So the number of World of Warcraft users is definitely on a decline from what I'm looking at right here. And then I know there's another game I used to play a lot of called Dungeons and Dragons Online, DDO is what we always called it. And because what we're talking about here, where D&D has its own virtual tabletop and game, and they're mostly charging a subscription, right, for people. They want people to be paying a monthly subscription is what they really want. And then probably microtransactions too. So games that have a monthly subscription and microtransactions most resemble MMOs to me, right? Like World of Warcraft. And the user base for a static game like World of Warcraft goes down. I know DDO, the user base goes down. And so there has to be, so if they just make their D&D VTT, your user base, if it models other static games where the game itself doesn't get major updates, it seems like the user base would just be on a perpetual decline. So at some point you have to do something to reinvigorate sales or get more people to come play your VTT or something, you know? So I don't know if you can just leave it the same forever and it would just work, you know?
But new subclasses. New subclasses, you invent new subclasses forever.
Yeah, but those games I was referencing, they do expansion packs and stuff where they do still similar stuff, you know? I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, the way they think is, a quarter ahead, and then they have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought up World of Warcraft, because
Uh-huh.
I think that's exactly where D&D is going.
Yeah.
Wizards of the Coast. So the history of, let's go back to Gen Con. Let's go
Okay.
back to Gen Con were you in Gen Cons in the 90s?
No, my first Gen Con was 2 years ago.
Oh,
I was
okay. All right.
gonna go in the year COVID hit, and then it all closed down. Yeah.
All right. So you're a whippersnapper. I was there. I was there back in the 80s.
I mean,
90s.
I'm not young. I'm like 44, so I'm not young. I didn't start going to conventions until like a few years ago, you know?
So back in the 90s, TSR went to Gen Con. They had this giant styrofoam castle.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. Wizards of the Coast bought them, and it got even bigger.
Yeah.
Like when Peter Atkinson, who now owns Gen Con,
Yeah.
he bought it. He bought Dungeons and Dragons because he loves Dungeons and Dragons, and he didn't want to see the IPs broken up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cataloged in Ben Rigg's excellent book, Slaying the Dragon.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they were all in. They were so proud of the heritage, and they had like this 9-foot tall Driz statue,
Yeah.
and this 10-foot tall troll and beholder, and
Uh-huh.
they went all out for Gen Con, even though it wasn't making them a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Once Atkinson sold it to Hasbro Wizards of the Coast, that is when you got the 4th edition. Because the reason you went to Gen Con is because it was a hobby for hobbyists, and it was a fan culture. And, as a fan, because that's how I went to Gen Con,
Yeah.
you wanted to meet Gary Gygax, Zeb Cook, Monty Cook, Chris Perkins, Wolfgang Bauer, whoever was working on Dungeons & Dragons. You
Yeah.
wanted to meet them. You had to press the flesh. Once Hasbro took it over, that slowed down, and it ultimately stopped right after the 5th edition hit 2014. By 2015, they didn't go to Gen Con anymore.
Right.
Now, why? Because it's a corporate game owned by a huge corporation. The bean counter said, wait a second. We're looking at our ROI, our return on investment, and we don't see this as making a lot of profit. You guys are going to Gen Con, you're having fun and doing panels, meeting the fans, but we could make more money if you didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the World of Warcraft, that's the same thing. Around, Stephen Glicker pointed this out on his show yesterday on Roll for Combat. They used to have BlizzCon, and when World of Warcraft was at peak hotness, like 2006 to 2008, their designers would go to these conventions, and they were like rock stars, and they're signing autographs, and they're all pressing the flesh, and it was that fan experience. But since 2012, which is when John Haidt came to Blizzard, it's gotten more and more corporate-y. They've canceled more and more BlizzCons, and now John Haidt is the president of Wizards of the Coast. And if you think back to the 4th edition, and I always get pushback on this, but it's so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
The impetus of the 4th edition is to make Dungeons and Dragons more like World of Warcraft.
It absolutely was.
Yeah, right. The blasters.
Yes.
You got the.
It literally that was the directive. 100%.
Yeah,
I was in a seminar with Ben Riggs. I believe that's who it was. It might have been somebody else, but it was at GameholeCon, and literally he has talked to people from that time period, and literally executives came in and were like, make it World of Warcraft. Like, that's her literal words. It was like, make it World of Warcraft. That was 100% the directive that the design team received. There's no quibbling about it. It is the way it was. Absolutely.
And that's because Dungeons and Dragons was it's $100 million brand.
Mm-hmm.
Warcraft is a multi-billion-dollar brand. It's a $2 billion brand.
Right.
They're trying to scale up D&D and make it Warcraft, and who better to do that than the Warcraft guy?
So he's the president that replaced
Cynthia Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So they're just more and more just pulling everyone in to make this into their MMO equivalent, basically, with subscription fees and microtransactions, online play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about the microtransactions because I've talked to people on the inside and they insist that you're not going to be able to buy a +5 Holy Avenger for your campaign. But subscription fees, definitely 100%. It's a subscription fee. So
I think it will be skins. I think that the things that a lot of these types of games make a lot of money off from is not like mechanical in-game benefits, which you can get these in these types of games, but skins. Basically, you want to have, so you're wearing a helmet, right? And your dungeon master gave you like a normal helmet or whatever. That's what you have, but you can make it look like a demonic helmet with like horns and fangs. Mechanically, it's just a helmet. Who cares, right? But you can make it look like that, and that's cool. I think that's the type of thing that will probably get lots of your whales, as they're called. You know, they'll just be like, I want the skins, I want that, I want the little, like, you know, the little cat that like walks alongside me as I adventure. It's not a companion, doesn't give me any benefits, but look at him, he's right there. Or I'm the warlock with like the bat or the imp on my shoulder. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, those are the types of things that people will pay for. You know, no in-game benefits, it just looks cool. You know what I mean? And then it becomes, because then what it becomes is you're in game and you're just plain Joe, and you look over and the other player's got this bat wing and the demon helmet, and you're like, oh crap, he looks so cool. I'm ordinary. I wonder oh, it's just $5? All right, I'll get the special skin, because now you have this, like, everybody looks so cool, but you're ordinary. As you're like, you have this psychological like competition going, you know, and there's no in-game benefits, so it doesn't actually affect gameplay. It's just, I look cooler. So I think that's the sort of thing that is a safer bet for microtransactions, because the moment a player can buy a +5 Holy Avenger, that's when the game master says, no. And then there's a problem. But if it has no mechanical benefit, well, then what's the game master going to do? Oh, I don't like your demon helmet. It's not in the right theme. You're a good person. Your alignment is good. You know, it's like, So I think that's what we're going to see.
Could be. Yeah, it could be. And what else was I going to say? That brings us to the poor guy that was let go yesterday.
Yeah. That Dixon DeBow?
Dixon DeBow,
the creator relations guy.
Creator relations.
Yeah.
So I never had. So what he did was, he was the guy that if you were a YouTuber like us, he'd get you the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yeah.
He would be a liaison between you and Wizards of the Coast. If you went to the April Creators Summit, he's the guy that arranges for your hotels and you to be wined and dined and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Does outreach and that kind of stuff. Now, and he was let go yesterday, and it seemed to be very sudden. Something like 4 people were let go from Wizards yesterday. He was one of them, and I feel terrible for the guy. And
yeah, totally. I
never had any interactions with him, but from what I know, people that did, like Bob Worldbuilder and Ted from Nerd Immersion. You know, they said the guy was a terrific guy, and they're letting him go. Now, did you have any relationship with him, or did you?
Nothing. No, Wizards of the Coast has only spoken to me once before, and that was when I think it was like basically a marketing person reached out to me. They were trying to promote Strixhaven. This was years ago, and they wanted me to do like a sponsored video or something on it, and I told them no. That's the only time. Well, no, they wanted me to turn around a video in like under a month. I'm like, I can't hit that timeline. I'd have to go buy the book. I'd have to read parts of it. I'd have to see if I even like it, because I'm not going to sponsor it if I don't like it. You know what I mean? And so I don't have time for all that. And so I was like, it's not going to work, you know, and whatever. So, but that's the only time they've ever written to me. And I've written to them a couple times before, and they just ghost me. I get no responses. And I literally I made sure I had the proper email address. I talked to Treant Monk, who talks with them regularly and gets like pre-release stuff, you know. And I made sure I had the right email address and everything, and they just ghost me. I get no response from them. So, I mean, I just don't want to talk to me. And I don't blame them. I mean, I do satire and stuff, and I talk about stuff they're doing that I disagree with, and I do skits that they probably throw darts at my face or something. I don't know. But yeah, they don't talk to me. No.
Yeah, well, they've never attempted to open up even a discussion with me, because I've always been like sort of like a homebrew.
Yeah.
But I think what it shows, the fact that they're getting rid of their customer relations guy, is they don't really care about YouTubers.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, what else do you take away from that? They don't care about YouTubers because YouTube, they've determined that YouTubers either don't have the influence they once had.
Yeah.
Or they just don't have any influence at all. And that they're going to do, that why send somebody the book early if they're going to cover it anyway? Like, if you didn't send the biggest YouTubers a copy of the DM's guide in advance, would they not make a video?
No, they will. It'll just come out later than they had wanted to, but they'll still probably, some of them, like, I literally ordered the books because I need to probably make a video about the Dungeon Master Guide, because there are some things I want to see if they actually improve or not. But I had to order it, so it'll get here when it gets here, and then my video will come out a month or two after everybody else has it in their hands. It'll just be late, But I guarantee you, like, there are some people who will, maybe they don't get it beforehand, but they'll get it like when everybody else gets it. They will literally take the next day and just read it cover to cover, and then they will script a video and they'll have a video out like super fast. There are some people that'll do that, they'll just crank it out. I don't care enough to do that, I suppose. But yeah, but you're right. If they don't send you books in advance, people will still buy them and make videos on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So why do they need to be nice to YouTube creators?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. This is the interesting thing, and so Bob World Builder and Alan from Dungeon Coach, we talk to each other through like video messaging and stuff. It's an app on your phone called Marco Polo. But I was one of the things we were talking about is what I just talked with you, that Wizards doesn't talk to me. Like they probably don't like me. So one of the stories I told them is like, but check this out. So Paizo does talk to me. Like I email people there, anything I want from Paizo, they'll send it to me. I just got to ask, I try not to abuse that. I only ask the things that I think that I'm going to either use or promote, like in my games I run or something, But like Paizo's always been nice to me. I've spoken with Eric Mona, super nice, and so like I have this like relationship with them, to a certain degree, and I'm on really good terms and stuff. So like, yes, that influences me. That might mean that there's this thing about something they release that maybe I don't like it. Maybe I'll just keep my mouth shut, maybe I'll be nicer and I won't lay into it as much as I might otherwise. It does influence you. It does. You know what I mean? Now it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lie for them or like, shill something that you don't believe in, because, there's like integrity, because you could still keep your integrity, but be, generous to someone. You know what I mean? It's like, let's pretend that you and I did something and I found out that you were a bad person in something or whatever. You know what I mean? But if we're on good terms, I'm just not going to tell anybody. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, you shot someone, but I'm not going to tell anybody because we're cool. You know what I mean? It's that idea. So it's like there is a benefit for a company being nice to people that have audiences and talk about your products, because it does like subtly psychologically influence you a little bit. You know what I mean? It does to a certain extent, now maybe not everybody. Maybe I'm just like, a weak-willed, person or something, or I don't know, but I don't know. I think it makes a difference.
It definitely makes a difference. And I before you got to Gen Con, I had dinner with Eric Mona of Pathfinder. Yeah. And Steven, very nice guy. And it definitely makes a difference. And that's Paizo, because they're in a different stage. They're in like that TSR stage that I was talking about back in the 90s, early 2000s, where it's very much a fan company. Where interfacing with the fans and the designers is very important to them, because at a certain stage you need that, because you're competing with Paizo's competing with Cobalt Press and Goodman Games, and like in that same kind of space. Yeah. So you gotta reach out and really cultivate that audience. When you're as dominant as Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. You no longer need that.
Yeah.
You've got the name recognition. So this is another thing I've been thinking about. So I love the game Monopoly, which I know the chat's probably going to be, blowing up. Oh, this guy doesn't know. Monopoly's terrible because a lot of people hate that game.
Look, I like Monopoly too because it is a simple game. You can play with your family. There's not a bunch of F words or like anime that's half nude or some stupid horse crap. It's easy to learn. And then my wife gets all excited and she's charging me rent and she makes me go bankrupt or something. Like, it's a fun, easy game. Like, I have great memories of playing that with my wife and daughter. Yeah, it's good. I like it.
So a lot of people hate the game.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, as much of, Monopoly is owned by Hasbro. Back since the 1970s, there was a World Monopoly Championship, and they did it every year. And it was always in an exotic location. We're talking London, Tokyo, twice in Monte Carlo, Atlantic City, Las Vegas, New York. And the last time, and it went from annual to biannual to every 5 years.
Right.
The last time they held it, it was in Macau, which is pretty cool. That was in 2015. They don't have a Monopoly World Championship anymore. The reason why they had them is to get positive press for Monopoly. But at some point, that game hit the tipping point where if you're like my house, you have multiple copies of the game, some of them in plastic. For most Americans, they all got this game. It's collecting dust. And while I enjoy it, it's not Wingspan. Like, Wingspan is a phenomenal game. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, if you go on Dice Tower or you go to a game convention, everybody knows what Wingspan is.
I don't.
You don't?
No, I've never played it before.
Oh, you're not into board games then. But
I am into board games. In fact,
you never heard of it?
Tomorrow, I'm going to my friend's house, Eric, and he has a basement filled like all walls, ceiling to floor with board games. So I bet he has Wingspan. I will ask him about it.
Wingspan is fantastic.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. It is a better game than Monopoly.
Okay.
And it's known to enthusiasts, but not necessarily to the average American.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because it's not that ubiquitous. Monopoly is ubiquitous.
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons has hit that tipping point.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you don't need anyone to advertise. You don't need a commercial. You don't need a YouTuber talking about it.
Yeah.
They will talk about it. You could treat those YouTubers like dirt, and they'll still talk about your game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I still talk about their game. Like,
yeah.
My whole channel is based upon Dungeon Master advice and stuff. So,
yeah.
I mean, I talk about that, and yeah, for sure. So, one thing too that we were talking about, like not needing to have like the influencers and stuff and not worrying too much about it, is I wonder too to what extent, just from an ROI standpoint, they were looking at the creative relations guy, the creator relations guy, and they're like, okay, look it, after the OGL, we did this summit, we brought in all these YouTubers and blogger people and stuff, and I don't know who all they were. Bob World Builder was there, and then some other people were there, right?
Yeah,
Most
Bob
of them
was there. Ted was there.
Yeah,
Ted Nerdimer.
There were like a few of the names of big channels I recognized, but most of the people didn't know who they were. So they might just be outside of like the stuff I read or consume or whatever. But I bet you they did like an ROI and was like, okay, we spent all this money on these creator relations. Is it actually getting us anything? Like you're saying, is it actually doing any good? And they probably were like, no, it's not really. You know what I mean? Like there are some of them, like probably, I know one of them, I don't want to name names because that wouldn't be cool. But one of them I know that was there, like he frequently like talks about other games and talks about how D&D isn't his thing and he likes to play other types of games and stuff. You know what I mean? And so like inviting him to all these things and whining and dining him didn't turn him into a shill, so to speak. No. He's still actively promoting other games and stuff. And then there are some people that have business interests with Wizards of the Coast that are literally make money and do appearances and stuff like that. So those are like outliers, I think, you know, because if you have business interests, like monetarily, financially tied to them, then you're definitely going to be very careful about what you say publicly and how you interact with their brand and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, and those are outliers though, because most people are not in that position. You know, we just make videos or we write blogs or whatever we happen to do, you know. So yeah.
I'm wondering if now that they're looking at it, they're like, yeah, how much do they really bring us in money? And I also think that I think the YouTube game is changing quite a bit in terms of, I think that there are a lot of channels, right, that were around that were big. I mean, first came Colville, right? First came Colville. And then you had that first generation of like, you know, like Nerdarchy and Dawn Forge Cast and WebDM and those channels, some of them aren't even around anymore. Right. And you know, you got like the third generation YouTubers. And I think that they blew up because nobody knew how to, well, first of all, it was like, how do you play D&D? Critical Role solved that problem. It showed people how it could be played. Now everybody wants to play it, but how do you game master it? Along comes Matt Colville and other channels, eventually like ours, to show people how to play. Now everybody knows how to be a game master that wants to be a game master. So where do you go with your channel? So people are always wondering, like, well, why are you always doing clickbait stuff on Wizards of the Coast? I'm not. I'm doing D&D advice videos too. Just as many as I've always done, but they don't get the views that they used to get.
No.
And the reason is because it's like, how many times can you talk about, well, how do you play out charisma? You know, like a video like that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, might have been a 100,000 view video, but now people know about it. So the influencer game has changed. And I think you've reached maybe a saturation point where everyone that wants to know how to play Dungeons and Dragons has played Dungeons and Dragons. And that makes influencers, even like us, less valuable to a company like Wizards of the Coast because they're already in the lead. You know, like a company like Free League, you know, might reach out to us. A company like JP Covert, you know, this is Dragon Town. Just finished the Kickstarter. This game is great. You know, so people reach out to us about smaller games because we have a huge influence with them. But Dungeons and Dragons, like, is anyone going to buy the new Game Master's Guide because I said it was good? I don't think so. So
I bet you they would, dude. I bet you they would. I think you're underselling yourself and whatnot, dude. Yeah.
But I just wonder, are we as valuable as we used to be?
I don't know. I get what you're saying about the declining views to a certain extent, but I don't know. I mean, certain videos do better on my channel, but most of my videos, it's like 10,000 views. That's what it's gonna get, man. And then some videos will keep doing well and hit maybe around 20 or 30. Every so often, I'll have a crazy one that gets over 100K. It'll just come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So, but it's been that way for me for a while now. It's kind of just how it is. And I think I sometimes go through this game of like, you know, oh, I need to get more views. How do I get more views? Well, I can have these thumbnails or titles or something, or I can trick people into watching it to a certain extent or something. And I'm kind of like, and sometimes I'll try to do that. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at titles and thumbnails. Really what I want to do is I just want to make, and I have a backlog of tons of video ideas for things I can talk about, game mastering and stuff like that. I have tons of ideas. I got tons more videos I can make. But really all I want to do is I want to make instructional videos that are going to help people run better games, you know, and learn and stuff. And I just want to make instructional videos. But what you're saying is right in that nowhere near as many people are going to watch my instructional video about, these are 5 ways to keep your players engaged. Here's 7 ways to use their backstories in a pre-written module. You know what I mean? Like, who's the number of people that are going to watch that video compared to like some of these other videos where it's like, like Wizards of the Coast lays off 3,000 people. Everybody's watching that. It's like, oh my gosh, whoa! You know what I mean? Like, or it's like, the tier ranking videos for the different classes or feats and stuff. All of these videos are going to get infinitely way more views. You know what I mean? But I've just kind of determined it's like, Luke, this is what you're doing, Luke. You're making videos that deliver educational value to game masters. Now, there's not going to be that many people that watch them, but that's what you do. That's what you do. You're not a news channel. You're not trying to like make sensational crap. You know what I mean? Occasionally I do it when there's something I feel passionately about, or when there's something like tonight that's just a crazy opportunity. Like you and I were going to talk about advanced game master advice, right?
Yeah.
But then this stuff broke and I was like, I kind of got to change it a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it's just opportune, but usually it's just like how to help game masters. And so I think I've just kind of like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make as those are my videos. That's what I do. And I guess I take comfort in the fact that I'm creating educational, valuable videos in that regard. And that's not to say that there isn't value in videos that produce entertainment or videos that deliver news. I personally feel like I get more value out of helping people in the way that like I'll go to a convention, and like this last convention I went to, and there was this guy that came up to me, and he emailed me after the convention too, and he came up to me and he's like, hey Luke, he wanted to get a selfie and all this kind of stuff, and he was there with his daughter and stuff. And then later on he emailed me and he's like, your videos are what got me back into being a game master, and I started spending more time with my daughter, and the rest of his family, if I remember correctly, and like, so your videos got me back into being a game master, which then caused me to have a better relationship with my daughter. And it's like, holy crap, that's the type of influence that's what I want to be able to do, is like impact people's lives like that. You know what I mean? Like the relationship between a father and his daughter is insanely important, and like I had a small little role in that, and that's cool. And so like I know that my type of videos just don't get a lot of views. That's just what it is, and hopefully it doesn't get worse, because that would be sucky. But I've just kind of resigned to the fact that 10K is about what I'm going to hit, unless I decide to do something stupid,
So let me ask you this though, like even with bigger channels, like when you think about the biggest channels, right? The ones that have 300,000-400,000 subscribers without naming any names.
Yeah.
Why does Wizards have to have outreach to them? They're just going to they're going to do the tiered rankings anyway.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's like, why would you give anything to them?
No, I don't think they need to. I agree, because here's the thing. People that are in the YouTube business, essentially you want to get views. You want to chase views, right? You want to get as many people as possible to watch your videos. That's the idea. Whether you do it for ad revenue, whether you do it because sponsors will give you more money based upon the number of views you get, you know what I mean? You want to get views, which means that you're going to create videos that get attention, and you'll create them based upon whatever you can use to get attention, right? And then if you're in the D&D niche, you're probably going to make videos about D&D, So it doesn't really matter what video you're making about D&D, you're still bringing attention to the brand, right? And you're creating something that people are going to be like more interested in D&D and want to play D&D more. And YouTubers are going to do that regardless of whether Wizards is nice to them or not nice to them, because the YouTubers want to be successful, right? And they're going to do what they need to do to be successful. So you're right. We don't need money from Wizards to encourage us to make videos that people watch, and to do our thing. And for that matter, like half the time, sensational videos are going to be knocking Wizards of the Coast and saying bad things about them, and like people are going to probably do that when the time strikes. You know what I mean? So whether or not, maybe Wizards, it's like giving them money or being nice to them, you know? So, I don't know.
Well, that's where I think where we started. Like that's where I think they let their YouTube liaison go.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they determined that we don't have to have outreach to YouTube. We have a game that's so popular, we don't have to go to convention. We don't have to bother with YouTube. The game will sell itself.
Yeah.
And that's why they stopped doing that with Monopoly. They're going to make D&D into Monopoly and World of Warcraft.
Yeah. Well, D&D is going to conventions again, though. They were at Gen Con, right? And then...
Only because it's a launch year.
You think they'll stop next year? Think so?
If they roll out a VTT, they'll go.
Yeah, because they were at Gamehole Con, too. Like, some of the people from Wizards were at Gamehole Con.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I met one of their... I met a guy Well, I met someone from them, and he was really cool. He was a really cool guy. So, I don't want to say who it was, because he might get in trouble for talking to me.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all cool guys. Everybody I've met from that company is awesome.
Yeah. The people I've met have been cool. Yeah.
And I'd like to think that I had some small influence because I've been beating that drum for years. Why is the biggest RPG company not at Gen Con? Why are they not going to any conventions?
Yeah.
And they saw the value for definitely a launch year. We'll see about.
Well, they were
people and there's a distinction. There are the people that play the game and they love the fans and they love the game and the history and all that. Mm-hmm. And then there are the bean counters that are above them.
Right.
The corporate people, the suits.
Yeah.
And that's a different thing.
They don't care. They just want to see money. Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate. You want to take a quick break?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
All right. When we come back, are we going to talk about the Game Master tips or are we going to keep talking about this?
I don't know. Let's make that call when we get back.
Okay. All right.
I'll see you in a little bit.
2 minutes.
Yep, 2 minutes.
Are you a dungeon master? Do you want to be a dungeon master? Do you have blue face paint on your face? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then you're just like me. Not only do you enjoy smashing players in the face with your axe every time they metagame, but you're also a busy person, and while prepping for a D&D game, well, sometimes that's hard. And as much as you'd like to force one of your players to run D&D for a change, well, they all suck, so it's pretty much up to you to be the forever dungeon master. And that's exactly why I get out my crayons every month and write a new issue of Lair magazine. Well, I mean, it's not just me, I have a team of people too. We all get out our crayons and write it, but Anyway, every issue of Lair magazine contains 5th edition Dungeon Master resources to help you reduce your prep time while still running amazing games for your lazy, good-for-nothing players. Every issue of Lair magazine contains 2 to 3 adventures complete with maps for online play. We also sprinkle in other stuff like puzzles and traps, which, let's be honest, both suck to have to make yourself. So, I mean, wouldn't you rather just become a DM Lair patron and pay me to write them for you? I mean, my team and I, with our crayons? Now, if you love your wonderful players as much as I do, consider helping me to meet my sales quota by becoming a DM Lair patron today at the link below. You'll get a new issue of Lair magazine every month and other cool stuff like map packs and bonus adventures. Okay, that's it. Please become a DM Lair patron now, or I will find you. Oh dear.
Oh yeah, we have a giveaway going on. I forgot to talk about it, except at the very beginning of the stream. There's a link in the chat. You can join the giveaway. We're giving away 3 months of membership to the DM Lair Patreon, where you can get Lair magazine every month, map packs and different stuff. So Lair magazine has like 5th edition adventures in it. Also Lair magazine comes in 5th edition and Pathfinder 2. And it has adventures, monsters, traps, puzzles, a whole bunch of Game Master resources you can use in your game. So anyway, we'll draw the winner to the giveaway at the end of the live stream. So you can jump in and join that. It's free, 100% free. The Barbarian. Yeah. That video is old. It's from like a couple years ago or something. What? Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, you're such a baby. Welcome back.
All right, I'm ready to go.
All right. Oh, somebody wants the Barbarian to fight Deathbringer. My Barbarian character versus your Deathbringer. I don't know. I think I just run away screaming. Oh no, he's gonna kill me! Run away! Run away! I'm out of there.
Isn't it? It's really cool that we created characters that people enjoy. That's nice.
Yeah. I like playing the Barbarian. Sometimes I play the Barbarian when I am in a game at a convention too. So, but I like playing dwarves too because I can use my dwarven accent. That's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move on to Game Master advice because I feel like we kind of fizzled out with the other one. I don't know if there's much more to say about it. So, how's that sound?
Yeah, I could sum it up by saying that stock is probably going to go down for a little while. Then it's going to have a great quarter because unfortunately they're going to fire more people, but they're also releasing D&D books. Mm-hmm. So revenue will probably increase for the next quarter.
Yeah.
But sadly, more people will be fired. That's the way it looks to me.
Yeah, because the book's got to be done. Like, the Dungeon Master Guide's already been printed. The Monster Manual has to all be laid out and with their printers and probably already printed and starting to work through distribution markets and stuff. So the books are already done. Absolutely. So they don't need the people to keep working on those books. So yeah, I would anticipate we'll have a Merry Christmas firing somewhere around the middle of December or so, So that would be my expectation. And this will just be all across Hasbro. And it seemed like the last time they fired people, they did it fairly indiscriminately. It was across everywhere, not just brands that were underperforming, but like everyone got sliced up. So I would expect the same thing. They won't care. They'll just, whoever they think they can reduce out and get rid of, they'll just do it. They probably, yeah, go ahead.
There will be less firings though.
Yeah.
It won't be as many.
No.
I think that 1,000 haircut, that is their big.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a total of 3,000 last year, wasn't it, roughly?
I thought it was like 1,000 or 1,500, something like that.
Oh, I thought it was
could have
more
been
than that.
It could have been more.
Yeah, but you don't think we'll get anywhere near 1,000?
I don't think it's going to be that many.
Yeah,
it's straight out of Machiavelli's The Prince. If you have to commit an atrocity, you want to do it really soon so that people forget about it.
Yeah.
Like whatever the worst thing you have to do is, you do that right away. Get it out of the way, and then people forget about it. And anything else, if this Christmas, if it's like, well, we only had to let 200 go, you'd be like, oh, well, they're so benevolent.
Instead of 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of 1,000.
Wow. Yeah. Yep, that's what's going to happen. We'll have more layoffs for sure. So that'll be fun. Not fun. I hated that last year when they did it. I just think it's sleazy to do it at Christmas time, but they don't care. Big company. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Game Master advice. So, advanced. If we could get like more of the advanced stuff, advanced Game Master advice, because you've been game mastering long before I even started playing. I would wager a guess. When did you roughly start game mastering? Do you remember?
1981.
I was 1 year old. Okay. So, yeah, I started game mastering in 1996. I think that's the date I usually state. I really don't remember. I just picked a number because it's close. So, yeah. Okay, cool. So what kind of Game Master advice, advanced Game Master advice crap can you give us based upon...
I'll go right to the top. This is the best piece of advice for
Go.
advanced. It took me so long to learn this. It took me 20 years to learn this. Always put your best stuff in the next session.
Yeah.
Your best stuff's got to go. Don't hold it back. Don't hold it back for, well, in 3 sessions, we're going to have this really long, I'm going to lead up to it. That's what Game Masters think. I'm going this is going to be an epic confrontation. So I have to lead up to it, you know, and plant the seeds, and we'll eventually have this epic confrontation. You don't have a guarantee that your players are going to show up next week. So you just give your best stuff. Don't hold it back. Next session, do your best stuff. If you're lucky, your players are going to be like, wow, that was great. And then they want to play again. And that's how I've run a campaign for 30 years.
Yeah.
Never holding anything back.
Cool. How do you do that? Because I'm thinking right now, in my Pathfinder 2 campaign, I was planning on running a heist for them. Okay, so I got this heist that I haven't actually made the heist yet, right? Because they have to get to where the heist is, and then they got to do some investigation. It's kind of like it's a little bit of a mystery investigation type thing, and then a heist. And like, I want this heist to be really cool, right? I'm like, oh, this heist, you know. I've never run a heist with this group before, so they should like it, right? But they keep on, and I am horrible at dropping plot hooks. And what I mean by that is I will give you 5+ plot hooks of different things you might do, because I like to have my players just be able to kind of do what they feel most interested and led to do. You know what I mean? So like, one of my plot hooks is like going to the heist, you know, but then there's all these other things, you know, that comes up. And then there's like, one of the players does something that angers a wizard, and she goes to jail. And then the wizard is like, okay, I'll get you out if you go find this MacGuffin for me, you know. And then the players are all like, if we don't find the MacGuffin, we're going to get smoked. So we have to go do that first. I thought they were going to ignore that and just go do the heist or whatever. And so like, I had to, off the top of my head, run part of a dungeon with no planning at all, just randomly picking and making stuff on the fly because they decided to go to this dungeon. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, it's interesting. I do this quarterly feedback with my players where I'll just ask for feedback. And for this dungeon, it was called Core Badir. He was like, you know, the first level of that dungeon was really not planned very well. There was no unified theme. It was just kind of like haphazardly thrown around, you know. That was like one of his gripes, right? But he's like, but the next 2 levels were really good, you know. And I don't think I ever told them, but like, I literally just made that first level up on the spot out of thin air. So that's why it kind of sucked, you know. But my point back to you is like, if my great idea, my next best thing is to run this heist, you know what I mean? How do I get it so they actually go do the thing, you know, in the next game session, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is you text them ahead of time and say, look, forget the plot hook. You're doing a heist. That's what I got planned.
Okay.
That's part of the social contract. It's just you're going to take the plot hook.
Yeah.
You know, and if you've got a sandbox, you know, like let's say the other classic is like the Caves of Chaos. That's what it was. You got the keep on the borderland, you got the Caves of Chaos, and the players can be there. They can go in whatever cave they want.
Right.
But I run that tons of times, and I always say, you got to tell me what cave you're going in.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you have to commit a week before. I need to know so I can plan.
Yeah.
And heists are really tricky. And I've got advice on running those. And they're so tricky that you got to just have the players commit. Hey, we want to do a heist. Great. Yeah. Okay. We'll do that next week. So you can plan for it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I always ask my players to tell me what they're going to do ahead of time, right? And most of the time, they follow through with that. But I like my players to be able to feel like they can just choose, you know? And then if they choose to go somewhere else, like, I oblige them that, you know? It's just kind of like how I run my games, you know? I have no problem at all just telling them, no, you're going to do this, you know, because you committed to it. You know what I mean? I guess it's just my style where I like to just let them choose and go with it. Most of the time, I can either predict what they're going to do. Sometimes I mispredict, though, horribly. And then they go do the last thing I thought they were going to do. Like, I could have 4 things ready for them. And in this case, I had 4 things ready. And they went and did the thing that I didn't prepare for, you know? So... yeah, that makes sense. It's really my own fault then, because I don't do that. It's just like, I allow them to kind of do almost whatever. I still give them plot hooks. they still have to choose a plot hook. I don't do this thing where it's just, oh, you're in the world wandering randomly around to see what adventure you can scare up. I don't do that, right? There are always plot hooks, but I usually give them several plot hooks. So, yeah, that makes sense. So, go ahead.
Do people in the chat want to know how to do a heist? Is there any interest in that? Because that's an advanced skill. That's something that a new game master should not do. And you shouldn't read Dragon Heist either, because it's terrible. It is not even a heist.
It's not even a heist. It's not even a heist. So let me give one of the advices I had in my mind, and then let's circle back to heist, and let's talk about heist because that's cool. It's also self-serving because I'm going to run a heist, and I haven't prepared it yet, so this is perfect. So whenever people ask me about, and I'll get comments sometimes in my videos where people are like, Luke, you always give out basic advice. Like, where's your advanced game master advice? Where's the advanced stuff? Okay. And in my brain, I'm always thinking two things. One, if you're ready for advanced advice, you probably don't need me to tell you anything because you're gonna, you know what I mean, more than likely. But two, every single bad game I've been in has been because people, the game master usually, or sometimes bad players, they were not executing properly the basics. You know, and every outstanding game I've been in the game hasn't been outstanding because of advanced techniques that they were implementing. It was outstanding because they were doing the basic stuff well. You know what I mean? They knew how to deliver a good plot hook. And then they knew how to do the rising tension, escalating things, you know. They knew how to describe a scene and set a scene really well. So that, you know, it described things succinctly, and then it brought up the important parts, but didn't overburden you with too much information. Or they would set a scene, and then when you asked for more information, they were ready for that information, you know. Or they knew how to design a good encounter. They knew how to balance it if that's what they were going for, you know. They did the basic stuff well, you know. And so when I think about running an amazing game, to me it's not necessarily having all this advanced techniques that you're implementing. It's, are you doing the basic stuff well? You know, are you doing it well? Because if you do, it's like in football, dude, you know, are you tackling with both arms like you're supposed to? Or are you trying to grab with one? You know, are you tucking the ball correctly? You know what I mean? It's like all of these basic skills, you know what I mean? And if you put them all together, you're doing them all really, really well, you can be a pretty solid player, you know? So that's what I think about, executing the basic stuff well. And then one of the things that definitely stands out to me, which separates a good game from a bad game, is how smooth the game is. Like, have you ever been in a game where the dungeon master was completely unprepared and they were unable to improvise, right? And so they got the book, you know, and they're just looking through the book or something, or they're trying to find a random encounter table or something. And then the players are kind of just waiting, and maybe they're having a conversation with each other because the game master's off doing this thing or something. And then they're asking questions, and the game master's looking things up, and he's starting to get a backlog of questions because he can't find the answers. It's just this disorganized, unsmooth, hectic game where nothing's really progressing because the game master's, his game isn't smooth. And then there's a game like your Macbeth game or that Mothership game where the game master was very good at making sure that the plot was progressing, the events were progressing, the adventure was progressing, and we weren't stagnant, you know, because he wasn't prepared or couldn't improvise or whatever, you know what I mean? So I think that's something in my mind that definitely sets aside a good game from a crappy game. Is it a smooth gameplay? You know, is it just flowing along, moving along, you know?
I agree. It's the execute. Because the other thing is, when I think advanced techniques, I think the thing that a game master really has got to nail, in my opinion, one of the number one things is how to execute combat and get around that table quickly.
Yeah.
And give everybody a chance and keep it moving.
Yep.
And one of the things that many game masters, I don't think, get is that D&D, especially 5e, is built for no more than 5 players, plus the game master.
Yeah.
Not built for that many.
Right.
And it's even on the basic set, on the starter set, it's on the box. And I don't think it says it anywhere in the core rule books. It's like, this is a game for 4, maybe 5 players. Once you get beyond that, it becomes much more difficult. You probably have to hack the game in terms of, like individual initiative, do group initiative instead. But simple things like we're taking our turns clockwise.
Yeah.
That is super important. So that the player feels, because as a game master, you're doing a million things, very active for you.
Yeah.
But you got to be thinking about that player sitting there.
Right.
I don't want it to take 2 minutes to get back to them.
Right.
So that is tough to, you got to practice at that. That's one of the things, getting around the table quickly.
Right. Making sure that everybody is playing without too much time waiting in between their turns.
Right.
And I think that's true in combat. It's true out of combat too, because you'll also have players who will just monopolize table time and just always talk about and do stuff. And other players are less able to do so. So the game master has to have that, situational awareness, group awareness, to just be like, these 2 people won't stop talking. I need to make them stop so that these 2 people can actually do something in the game, So yeah, I totally agree. But since combat, a lot of times, mini games, not all of them, obviously, but in mini games, combat is like a central feature. That's probably for sure one of the basics to like get down and know and run. And then the smoothest of getting around the turns and not having a player take like 10 minutes on their turn. I was once in a game with she was running a wizard, and she took about 10 minutes to pick out. It was on her turn, and she took about 10 minutes to look through spells and try to pick the spell. And all the other players are making suggestions about what about the spell? What about the spell? 10 minutes, dude, on her turn to cast a spell. I'm just dying. I was at Gen Con this year, and I was observing. I was waiting for one of my friends was in a game. He was playing in a game, and I was observing that game running. That combat was taking forever. It was painful how slow it was. Every single turn, it was just painful, and I was falling asleep because I wanted to go back. We were sharing a room together, so I was like, man, this combat's got to get over faster, dude. So, yeah.
That's the, you meet people all the time. It's like, well, this game system is too slow.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the game system or the person running the system,
or the players,
or the player,
combination.
Or the player.
Yeah, combination.
But they're wizards. Somebody's got to tell the wizard, look, if you're going to be a wizard and you get all these choices, because if you're a wizard in D&D, you get the cheesecake menu, the Cheesecake Factory menu of choices. You ever go to the Cheesecake Factory?
I have not. No. What is that like?
It's got a menu with 1,000 things on it.
Oh, okay.
And it's a ring binder.
So it's kind of like
endless offerings.
Yeah.
And when you go to the Cheesecake Factory, I'll never go to a Cheesecake Factory with someone that's never been to the Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, okay.
Because then they're like, oh my gosh.
So you'll never go with me then. You're like, Luke, sorry, we're pals, but no.
I would tell you, go online, look at the menu in advance. And that's what I tell like wizards. If you're going to be a wizard, you got to come correct. You got to always know what you're going to do on your turn. When we come to you, you got to take your turn, because we're not waiting for you to pick the perfect spell.
Yeah. I have one player that when he plays a spellcaster, he takes too long to pick his spells. But right now he's not playing a spellcaster, and it's great. I'll tell you when, it's great. As long as that guy never plays a spellcaster again, I think we're gonna have awesome games. But he can't pick his spells out for the life of him, So, yeah, 100% agree with that. All right, you want to go to heists?
Yeah, heists. I got a lot to say.
All right, go.
Well, it's actually very simple. What you need is you need an object. You need the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
You need someone to hire. You need a location. You need a time limit. And you need sometimes an opposing force. If you have those things, you don't have to plan much of the rest.
Okay.
Because with a heist, the players can plan it. Right. That's what they do. Right. So in my I had this video. It was called the Reviled Society. It was a sort of an adaptation of the Veiled Society, but my players took it in weird places. That's an old module from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a bottle of wine. A mysterious patron in a gold mask hires them. I want you to get a bottle of the Amontillado. It was called the Amontillado, like Poe's story, the Amontillado. It's in this guy, the bad guy's basement, but he's having a masquerade ball. All right, and you're going to get a certain amount of invitations. You got to get into the masquerade ball. You got to get that wine out, and you got to get it to me by midnight.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
And it's got to be at midnight. There's going to be unmasking, and that's when they know you're not supposed to be there, because we forged the invitation.
Yeah.
And so that worked out really well. That was really tense, because the players, they'll make their wacky plans, because it was like locked up in the basement, but the key was in the bad guy's pocket. So one of them danced with the bad guy, picked his pocket, handed it off to someone else. They all did that.
Yeah.
So
you have to plan out that location, though. You got to have that.
You do.
That location's got to be really tight, because when they're like doing reconnaissance and stuff, they're like, well, let's go check out the bathrooms and let's find out this, that, and the other. Let's see what defenses the basement has. When they're doing that recon, which is a feature of a heist, that initial recon and then planning, right? You have to know that location pretty well to be able to describe it to them, because that's when they're able to actually start making their plans.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what you're focusing on, the location and making it super detailed. So you can answer their questions, as opposed to think about like what's going to happen in what order. You could let them decide that.
Yeah. That's super interesting, though, because when I plan out just this typical dungeon crawl, I never think about events like what's going to happen when. I just plan out the location. I do the exact same thing. And then the players, whatever way the players decide to go through the dungeon crawl, that impacts like what happens when, so it sounds very similar to like how I do my normal dungeons. That might just it might just be how I do my dungeons,
And it's you got to have a time limit.
Yeah.
And to throw a wrench in, well, there's another group of thieves, and they also want the wine.
Right. Now, why the time limit? So what complications come into play if you don't have a time limit?
Well, you have to. I think here's some advanced game master advice. Your game will be way less boring if it has a time limit. If there's a time limit to every game I've ever run, there's a time limit generally. I mean, there's some exceptions, like you played Macbeth.
Yeah.
Didn't have a time limit, but usually my games have a time limit. And the reason is because with Macbeth, what propels you through that adventure is sort of like, well, you want to see how it's about battles and wars, and you got a clear villain, and you want to see if it's going to turn out like the Shakespeare play. But in a normal adventure, like a D&D adventure, if it's like, well, goblins in a cave and they're waiting to die, no. If there are prisoners from the town, the goblins have kidnapped people from the town, and they're going to eat them alive. They're going to eat them unless you can rescue them. That's a much more exciting adventure right there.
I like it. Yeah, so just basically thinking about, is there a way that I can make a time limit on this? Any way to make a time limit on it? That way the players feel that pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll make it more exciting. Now there'll be like the one person out of 1,000 that like freaks out and has a panic attack because there's a timeline and pressure. But that person doesn't play in my game, so I'm not too worried about that. Because there's some people that like literally I will make videos that talk about speeding up combat, and like one of the ways to speed up combat is give everybody like a 1 minute timer or something. Like
1 minute timer.
If you can't make up your mind in a minute, you get skipped or you're dodging or something. And there'll be people that leave comments just like, I know that's horrible. That sounds horrible. All that pressure on somebody to make a decision in 1 minute. And I'm just like, no. You don't have to make a decision in 1 minute. You've had like 5 minutes when everybody else was taking their turns. That's what you should have been thinking. You know what I mean? But people don't get it. They just, I don't know, man. Some people are like a little bit of something or other, adjective, insert of choice. So, but yeah, so time limits. That's really good. I'm going to have to think about that one.
People ask how, I had a video about how to run Ravenloft in one night.
Yeah.
Right? And the original Tracy Hickman Ravenloft, that module, the players, if they don't, it's famous because the goals are different. You got like tarot cards, and it tells you what you're trying to get, what the MacGuffin is.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to get it by midnight. A lot of people forget that you're dead if you don't do that. Your character's dead and becomes a ghost.
So you
And
literally
people
had
ask, how do you run it in one night? And the answer is because they're dead at midnight. So there's a motivation. And
Cool. So the original Ravenloft was designed to be ran in one game session. Is that
yeah, he ran that every Halloween.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about the original Dracula, right? The novel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where or the Coppola film. They're racing that chase, which is in the film and in the book. They are racing to get to Dracula's castle before Mina turns into the vampire.
Right.
All right. In the case of Lord of the Rings, Frodo and Sam are racing to get to Mount Doom before the forces of good at Gondor are overrun.
Right.
And every Batman film, everyone ends with a bomb. Everyone. Every single Batman film, there's going to be a bomb. It's going to explode, and the people of Gotham are going to die.
Right.
You never think about it.
Yep, it's true, man.
But it's there. And Dungeons and Dragons, everyone's game will take a step up if you just have a time limit. And then that ends let's take a long rest and get our hit points. Let's wait. Let's nap. We get our hit points back. You can.
I don't go on Twitter very often, but I was on Twitter just to drop a tweet that we're having our live stream here, and I saw a tweet from Colby from D4. What's the channel called? D4 something or other. But anyway, he did a tweet, and his question was, how many encounters does your group usually have before you take a long rest? Okay? And the winning number was 1 to 2 encounters before a long rest. Okay? Which means that in a typical adventure, there is maybe 5 to 8 plus encounters in an adventure, right? And if you're following the adventuring day mechanic that the Dungeon Master Guide lays out, D&D 5th edition is designed so that you're supposed to have a certain number of encounters to deplete resources so that your final boss fight isn't like a steamwalk, just get steamrolled or whatever. And so you're supposed to have so many encounters. It's like 5 to 8 or something, And majority of people have 1 to 2 encounters before a long rest, which tells you that, well, first of all, it could be dungeon masters who are homebrewing stuff and they just run their games differently, right? But it also could just be, a lot of people run pre-made modules too. It could also just mean there's no time limit. There's no consequences, no impact at all to leave the dungeon or hole up in a room and take 8 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, however many long, because you can only long rest once per 24-hour period, and just totally just wait. And like you said before, and then the goblins or the kobolds or whoever it is, they're just sitting in their room over there, just waiting to be killed. So you take your long rest at your leisure. We're gonna wait over here and just wait for you to get ready to come kill us. Yeah. There's no time limit.
Yeah, whatever it is. If you got to stop the cult in my game, because they're gonna sacrifice, the merchant's daughter, and he hired you to get him back. If you take a long rest, when the long rest is over, you would get to the whatever the cult room is, and the victim will be all chopped up on the table.
Yes.
And then I'll say, oh, you didn't make it to her. Here's your milestone XP. You lose a level because you didn't rescue her. All right. You took a long rest. That's the milestone. That's the experience. You got negative experience.
Yeah.
Why can't you have, why is experience points always a positive thing? Why can't there be negative experience because you screwed something up? I got a lot of negative experiences in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you why, because players would freak out and quit, and they would especially if you're playing on like, Roll20 or something, they would just be like, you suck, and they go join somebody else's game. But in all honesty, do I want that player in my game to begin with? Probably not.
No.
So not a big loss, I suppose. So right now I have begun running Shadow Dark, okay, and I am loving the system. And one of the things I like about it is that you track your torches. Like each torch lasts for an hour, and you literally track it in real time. And when I'm sitting here, and these guys are like, how many torches we got? And you're also very strict on tracking inventory slots. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of the resource management's like a little mini game in Shadow Dark, right? But in a good way that adds to the suspense and like fun gameplay, because resource management most of the time in a lot of games can be like not so fun, but in Shadow Dark it really makes it more intense. So anyway, these guys are like tracking their torches and stuff, and it's like, how many torches you got, and like, okay, we only got 2 more torches, so like we're gonna have to go back to town and get more torches. You know what I mean? Like we have no choice because we can't see it, and we're screwed. Nobody can see in the dark in Shadow Dark except for the monsters, right? And if you can't see in the dark, you're in trouble. So the danger goes up, more random encounters goes up, everything's rolled with disadvantage. You can't be in the dark, right? And so these guys are these torches running out is turning into like a mini timer, basically, where they're hurrying against that timer. And then it's real time. So if they have a 15-minute conversation about doing this or that, the torch is going down. When they're in combat, real time keeps on running. The torch keeps on running. There's no concept of like each round of combat is only 6 seconds. None of that. It's all real time. Several times now in this game that I'm running online, they've been in the middle of a combat and a torch goes out and they're in total darkness. And then the next player's like, oh crap, I guess I'm spending my turn lighting a torch, And it just, I don't know, there's something about it having that time limit on the torch that just makes it kind of cool, and makes it more interesting. So yeah, that's a time limit thing that kind of reinforces your point you're making, or it makes it more interesting. Yeah,
and then I throw in, okay, you've got the torches, you've only got 2 left, you could go back to town, but the people that you were hired to rescue, they're going to be eaten.
That's the way to really spice it up. Yes, I mean I have to do that too. Yeah, I will 100% start thinking of time limits now in my adventures for sure, because I can totally see how that's going to make them better. Yeah, that's really good.
And a heist needs one.
Yeah, for sure.
Heist absolutely needs a timer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Otherwise, the planning phase could go forever.
Right,
yeah.
And I generally let their plans work.
Yeah.
I generally let their plans work.
Like even independent of dice rolls and stuff, you just let it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would. And it's like, all right, so the example I gave where the one player's trying to pick the pocket of the bad guy to get the K. A couple of things. Like I would probably give them advantage.
Mm-hmm.
If they fail, that doesn't mean that they know their pocket is being picked.
Yeah.
It just means, oh, you had the key to drop back in.
Mm-hmm.
And I also use my mechanic with Deathbringer dice, so you have some luck dice. So if you really need the roll to work, you could spend those dice to make it work. That's like the best thing about my game. That's the best thing about Deathbringer. Is the Deathbringer dice that you can choose it, instead of failing at a critical part, you could succeed.
Yeah, so my style of game mastering is such that I would let them fail. Like if you're rolling dice, the dice, you should live or die by the dice. Now, if I have predetermined, like let's say they have an excellent, for instance, my Shadow Dark game, I ran this at GameholeCon. The guy he gave a compelling speech to a bad guy of why he should repent of his ways. And he did such a great job role-playing that speech, like just the persuasive techniques and stuff. I simply decided that the bad guy was going to have a change of heart. I didn't require a dice roll at all because I'd already decided. And in fact, my fear is that if he rolled a die and it came up low, then I would then have to have the bad guy say no. Or I'd have him agree, and then everybody would be like, but he rolled low, it doesn't make any sense. And so the way I generally do things is if I think something's going to work, or if I think it's going to fail, and I've already made that decision, I don't even require a dice rolls. Because if I ask for a dice roll, I want to live or die by it, you know. Otherwise, I don't think there's a point in rolling the die to begin with, you know. But I also think that a bad plan, and somebody said this in chat too, and I agree, a bad plan should fail. Like,
bad plan.
I've had players come up with some bad plans, and I'm just like, that'll never work. It's just not even feasible, you know. And it's not because they're missing critical information. I make sure I do my best to make sure they have all the important information. Because sometimes people make bad plans because they're unaware of X, Y, and Z. But I make sure that they have it. But sometimes they just have bad plans, and it's like, look at you can't just walk into the dragon sitting on their pile of gold and like intimidate them into giving you all the gold. It's never gonna work. I don't care, like, at least based upon what you're telling me, that's not gonna work. It's impossible. That's not a dice roll. It's I breathe fire and we kill you. It's not gonna work. You know. Now, if you came in and said, listen, we stole some of your eggs, and okay, now you have a different plan, right? It's a different story. Maybe it would work. I don't know. You know what I mean? So, but I think bad plans should fail for sure. So, but I agree. Yeah, it sounds like you agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree. And I also live by the dice rolls. You know, with the example that I gave of picking the pocket, I'd probably make them approach it a different way. But it's just like, just because you failed doesn't necessarily, if you failed to jump a pit, it doesn't necessarily mean you fell on the spikes. If you missed it by 2,
right?
Maybe you slipped, and I'll say, oh, you didn't fall on the spikes, but you're going to lose. What do you want to lose? Whatever you're carrying in that sack, or your shield.
Yeah.
Like, I might say it like that.
So we're talking about setbacks. So instead of like a dead end where it's game over, you know, like for instance, you failed to pick the key, he spotted you, he alerts the guards, you all get arrested. Sorry guys, you lost. That would suck, right? But a setback is different, right? And it allows the game to progress. There's a consequence for failure, but the game can continue forward. Yeah. And that's just like escalating, you know, which is cool. Yeah. I totally agree. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap this shindig up. I'm going to draw the winner of our giveaway, which I think I announced a couple times on stream, and people probably are like, what? You didn't tell me. I'm sorry. All right, I'm drawing the winner right now. And the winner is Copper Lord. Copper Lord from North Carolina. Copper Lord. I will send you an email. We'll get you hooked up with some cool crap. All right, Professor Dungeon Master, do you have any parting comments before we wrap this up?
Yeah, play more games. Life's too short. Play games.
Yes, I'm really into Shadow Dark right now, and I bought Savage Worlds at Gamehole Con, and I have Call of Cthulhu starter set that I need to crack open and start reading too. But I'm always looking at all these games, and I'm like, I agree with you. I need to play more games. Tomorrow I'm going to my friend's house to play board games, and I'm going to ask him about Wingspan.
Oh, Wingspan.
Because he probably has it. So, yeah, totally agree. Well, thank you, sir, for coming on the stream. I appreciate it. We got into some, like, you know, WotC layoff bullcrap, and then talking about Game Master stuff. And I know that I'm going to use that time thing hardcore. That is cool. Thank you, sir. I'm going to close out the stream, but if you could just stay on for a second, that would be awesome.
Sure.
All right,
thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Professor Dungeon Craft's YouTube channel is linked below, and you can go watch him and stuff. He's super cool. All right, here we go. End.